I believe we're live. I just want to have an audio check and make sure that you're able to hear me. One of you can post a text to make sure that all things are coming through 5x5. Stand by. Just making sure the audio is set. Okay, great. It looks like we're set to go. So, welcome to this teleconference on the hormones of exercise timing as well as nutrition and hydration. Though the focus is going to be on the impact of exercise timing and chronic stress, and how chronic stress inevitably deteriorates, if not hijacks, all of our exercise success. So let me give a pre-frame for our discussion. I want to share the information that I promised on this technique called outflow, which is a literal name for what happens when we release water that gets bound from stress. So let's do a quick overview on what happens during stress. When we experience life stressors, and I'm not talking about being necessarily under fire, it could be something as simple as relationship, financial, or parenting stress. That activates our sympathetic nervous system, and we get a release of particular hormones to mobilize us, to increase our attention, increase our awareness and vigilance. I'm trying to pull up a schematic that I don't think I can show you on the impact of those hormones. So let's stick to a verbal. So we have three primary that you're going to activate when you get stressed out. And those are the catecholamines. Those are your fast accelerator. So let's just reduce them to epinephrine, typically called adrenaline, norepinephrine or noradrenaline, and aldosterone. The glucocorticoids and cortisol. We're going to deal with those three. So I'm going to refer to those top three, epinephrine, norepinephrine, and aldosterone, as the catecholamines. Glucocorticoids, which is a slow accelerator, it comes around the circuit and then cooks on some activation later. And cortisol, which is designed to be the antagonist to insulin. So when cortisol comes, its job is to lower your insulin so you can lift your blood sugar, and that gives you more access. Some people are saying that you got nothing, nobody hears my audio. Tanya and Michael, you're not hearing my audio. Stand by. Chris, you can hear it. That's strange that some of you can, and others can't. All right. Well, I apologize for the hiccup. What I'll do is this will be recorded and then I'll put it up later. So we've got the glucocorticoids, which is your slow accelerator, and then your cortisol, which is to lift your blood sugar. Now, let's say that you don't have any particular off switch for your activation. You keep on getting hit by stressors. And let's say that you exercise around midday, you hit it really hard, you don't have any type of long cool down, and you might skip a meal, you might miss a meal, you might try and fast all day long, you might hit too much coffee, you might have a traffic jam and road rage. All of the accumulation of things creates this cascade which launches more of these three hormones, the catecholamines, the glucocorticoids, and the cortisol. So it disturbs your levels. Not only does that impact your performance during the day, but then it leaches over into night because those still kick on. They have a half-life that pushes them into your sleep cycle. The glucocorticoids, like I said, are slow. They come around and they can last for a while and they'll disrupt your sleep. The cortisol, if it's too abundant, then it can start to impact your levels later on at night as well. So let's just look at the pneumatics of it for a second. And this is where it really starts to screw with your water retention. It's really interesting. So you have epinephrine, and that gives your heart greater palpation. I'm sorry, I'm just reading that. Some of you are still having audio issues. Watson says to check the volume on the Ustream video box to make sure that you haven't muted it or it isn't muted currently. I have an audio check that seems to be appearing. Okay, so epinephrine, one of the catecholamines, increases your heart speed. The norepinephrine is designed to constrict your vessels so it can increase blood pressure. And vasopressin, which also contributes to that, is going to increase the vasoconstriction. It's going to increase your blood pressure. Now, why would we do that? Why would our system design to do that? One, blood pressure is going to help you be able to fight away or flee away from a potential threat. Remember, we have a Paleolithic nervous system, so our chemicals are designed to help us in times of stress. So by lifting up our blood pressure, that's supposed to be a good thing. Unfortunately, if we don't turn it off, if we have no significant rest period, and if we have lights in our house and we stay awake late at night, we work hard, we have stimulants, we disrupt our normal biorhythm, then that increased pressure can push fluid, since vasopressin is an antidiuretic, so it's going to suck in water, and it's assumed that you're going to need that increased water, that increased fluid, in order to increase blood pressure, and it pushes it into the capillaries, which can leak, and the pressure can make the walls too permeable, and it pushes water into fluid tissue, interstitial tissue, and that's why you can carry quite a bit of water, up to 14 pounds of water, when under stress. I can tell just from taking a long flight overseas, like I'm going to Australia on Monday. By the time I land, I won't be able to see any of the veins in my forearms. And that's because of the fluid volume picking up and packing in between the tissues. So now, to get to the first aspect of this, is this outflow approach, this outflow technique. One, you need to increase flavonoids, and you can look up flavonoids on your Google search. But hit things like parsley and celery, chop them up and let them sit in a big jar of water that you suck from all day long. By that will help you repair some of the leaky capillaries. It'll help repair the tissues, as well as start to synthesize some of the proteins that are washing around in that interstitial fluid, and pick them up and draw them out. Two, when you start to consume more water, then the ADH, the antidiuretic hormone, vasopressin, will start to shut down, because the pressure is osmotic. It feels the pressure in the tissue, so it assumes when there's the presence of sufficient amount of water, it doesn't need to retain it. Okay, so hit those flavonoids, parsley and celery, put it in some water, and this is what I do all day long. One, first, have 4 to 6 ounces of water at the top of every hour. And if you're like me, you need reminders, because I can work all day long, and if I don't set a regular routine, I might even just skip meals, which causes stress. So 4 to 6 ounces of water at the beginning of every hour. Two, you want to make sure that when you have your workout, you have to have 8 ounces of water as soon as you're done. Now, why? You don't get to use the water during the workout. The water that you take in takes about 20 minutes for you to be able to utilize from the point that you're taking. So sips of water or drinking water throughout your workout is only going to consume space and pressure inside your body. Wait until after your water, then hit it hard. 2, since exercise is also a stressor, it activates the sympathetic nervous system, so you're going to get hit with the catecholamines, the glucocorticoids, and the cortisol. You need to take in water because it's going to increase the blood pressure for your performance. 3, you want to start addressing the, well, black tea or green tea, if this is another version of your flavonoids, and that will help to release some of that water. And then stop drinking during your meals and wait 15 minutes after your meals. Don't have any glass or cup around you. And from 15 minutes on, you have sufficient amount of digestion that you won't be diluting and impairing your digestion by drinking water. And then hit another 8 ounces. So this is where there's a lot of conflicting research about the overhydration. Overhydration is believing that you have to have so much water intake even when not stressed. So this is stress dependent. Depending upon your day, you have to hit this outflow technique, and you can check your body to see if there's puffiness underneath the eyes, in the fingers. If you wear rings and you start to find that the wedding ring is difficult to take off, I fluctuate so much that I can't even wear my wedding ring. I can tell from my forearms whether the veins disappear or not. Or swollen ankles. Look for common indicators, and then you know that you need to increase the water retention or the water intake to let go of the release. 2, think about a morning workout pre-breakfast. Why? What'll happen is if you do a fasted workout early in the morning, there are many reasons that I'm going to endorse taking your first workout, your morning workout, fasted, is that it'll cause your liver to start synthesizing so that it can release or convert blood sugar inside it. And what that will do is, because of the way it stores your glycogen, it will release up to 4 to 5 pounds of water that's stored in holding those carbohydrates. So you're going to hit a heavy, sweaty workout. And you can find people that are very stressed out. They will over-perspire. And when I say over-perspire, I don't mean it's necessarily a negative thing. It's actually a positive thing. It's because of their stress that they sweat so much. And depending upon my first workout when I take an overseas flight, it will be a sweaty mess. And that is because the amount of water retention that's released as soon as you hit the ground. If they're called Zeitgebers, they're methods. Zeitgebers, they're methods of trying to get onto the time zone as fast as possible. And one of them is, as soon as you hit the ground, get to your hotel, have a workout before you eat anything. If you want to do anything to help you, I know this will sound conflicting with other things I've said, have an espresso, do your workout, and then have a large meal, and you'll find you'll fall right to sleep, and you'll feel great. Hit your water as soon as your meal's done. So those are the basic techniques on outflow. Test them and make sure that they're appropriate to your levels. The only way to really make sure that your cortisol levels are, since cortisol is a biomarker for stress, is to have a tasting test. Help me now with the word. When you are having a test onto your tongue, the name is completely, I'm going to pull it up because that irritates me when I forget something. you can take, you know what, I'm going to publish this because that frustrates me when I can't remember something. The best way to take those cortisol tests will be throughout the day, but they're a little bit expensive. However, you can, since you can't test cortisol without some type of investment, you can test it by looking for the usual suspects on water retention. So those are the blood panel tests. No, it's not a blood panel test. It's not a litmus test. Thanks for joining in and trying to help out. But I'll find it later, and I'll get up the recommended test for you when I list it. So those are the main outflow techniques. The primary issue is that we need to get to the other end of the nervous system. So you need to hit your workout, and then we need to shut those down. We need to shut down the cortisol production, the secretion in particular, and we do that by having an intense workout followed immediately by a heavy cool down. You need to have some type of wave of deep yoga that you can enter, and that deep exhalatory breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system and gets you over to the other side. So if you're chronically stressed out, you can't have a yoga session. It's very difficult for you to get to that level of breath because of the vasoconstriction, because of that the increase in respiration, the heart speed. The chronic stress makes it yoga inaccessible. So saliva test. Thank you, Watson. That it was the saliva test for the such a difficult term. It's the saliva test that you can take morning, evening, and midday to make sure that cortisol levels are within the range. Okay, thanks, Watson. So to get back, if you're under some type of chronic stress, and most people are, 90% of us are, 90% of Americans are chronically stressed out. So I can't speak for all cultures, but if we hit an intense workout, what we end up doing is, I call it a hormonal tourniquet. We end up squeezing onto the sympathetic nervous system and regaining control. And I think of the analogy of ischemic compression and massage. If you have a dry fibrotic tissue, you want to squeeze on it like a sponge, and then when you release it, it sucks back in the... Sarah, I'll get to the saliva test. I'll publish something on my Facebook about the saliva test that refers to managing and being aware of your cortisol levels. So this ischemic compression, you squeeze on it, you release it, and it sucks back in circulation into the tissue to increase its mobility. All right. So with the sympathetic nervous system, if you're stressed out, you need to have an intense workout in order to reclaim control of the sympathetic nervous system. So you turn it on, and then you release it, and that gives you a dopamine hit. So we know about endorphins, and endorphins give us the pain-free sensation of absence of joint aching. No more muscle cramping, no more muscle pain. All of that release that happens, that pain-free release, comes from an endorphin hit. But also, we start to feel good. And it's the dopamine in particular that's released when we activate the nervous system through exercise-induced stress. We call this eustress in behavioral psychology, but from a neuroscientific standpoint, it refers to a dopamine release. You'll even start to have the dopamine release once you get consistent with your exercise before you start the exercise. Your brain adapts to the fact that it knows that the exercise period is coming, and it will give you that hit of feeling good and reclaiming control of your autonomic nervous system. So you'll be able to have that perseverance to go through the session, and the fine motor and motor awareness to go into your yoga session. And that's what you need. We need to get into we need to get into the yoga session. It may not be for a day. And so when you're first reclaiming control of your nervous system from chronic stress, the wave could be 4 days long. You need to hit the intense workout to get over to the other side of the nervous system. To get over to the other side of, I'm sorry, Sarah, I just read your remark. To get over to the other side of the nervous system so that you can have two particular hormones. There's so many, and I'm oversimplifying this, but it's really easy for us to absorb the information, if we look at it from two sides, right? We have sympathetic and parasympathetic. I need to have my intense workout so that I can reclaim my control of my chronic stress from those catecholamines, the fast accelerator, the glucocorticoids, the slow accelerator, and the cortisol to increase my blood sugar, right? So that I have mobilized energy for that stressor. Now, once I get that dopamine hit, I feel good enough to get into my yoga session. That's my doorway. When I have that feel good, that second wind, now I'm able to get into that, and that'll last me up to 48 hours. Once I'm able to relax into my session, then I can get my serotonin and my acetylcholine. So I need these things for my recovery cycle. I need my serotonin to just improve my mood and be a manageable contributor to society. So I need that serotonin. That's my quality of life. I need the acetylcholine in order to use the recovery and repair during sleep. I get most of it during sleep, but if it's interrupted from my cortisol levels or my stress, then I don't get those. And I could have compulsions and addictions. I'll want to. You'll feel that you can have compulsions for alcohol, for sex, for thrills, for adrenaline hits. All of these because of the depletion of dopamine and serotonin levels. So once I get over to the yoga session, to this parasympathetic side of my nervous system, then I can have my off switch. And that resets everything for the night. So over the course of that night, and I put out a graph today that will help. I'll wake up the next morning, improved motor function. I have muscle repair, so I don't ache anymore. I even have increased muscle density or bone density, and that is very difficult to see. But you'll find that you are able to have a better workout the next morning. So I strongly suggest that you start looking at toggling your intense workouts. Use your intense workouts. Those are good for us. But if you want to hit them around 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. 6 a.m. to switch everything on because you're going to have a testosterone release around 9 a.m. So that's going to be really beneficial for you. And because postprandial, after your breakfast, you have about 2 hours of androgen receptors that are open. So you hit your 6 a.m. workout, 7 a.m., you have your big meal, your breakfast with lots of protein, and then the androgen receptors open up for about 2 hours. If you have your testosterone release around 9 a.m., I know this is so meticulous and methodical, and it's very difficult to organize, and I know we have lots of questions coming up. But this is how useful the timing is. So the testosterone hits, and the androgen receptors are open for it. The growth hormones there, woohoo! Muscle growth, bone density, as well as turning on your metabolism throughout the course of the day. So you become a furnace. And then if you hit another short workout around 6 p.m. or 4 to 6 p.m. technically, right before your dinner, you're going to have the same effect, but this time it's not going to be that high impact, high intensity cardio stamina type workout. This is where you have a lot of strength activation. It may be slower, but you'll have a good strength session at night. And that is your anabolic window, your muscle building window, because right after that, you're going to have your big meal and you're going to get ready for sleep. So you're going to have the most amount of bodily repair for your muscles and bones. So all of these factors can impact timing. And I wanted to give a pre-frame for it. We need to look at the hormonal system rather than just the musculoskeletal system, because it's all impacted by timing. And if we have it at the wrong time, we can increase our stress levels. And I know that there are a lot of people here that are tuning in that have some real life vocational and recreational and behavioral challenges that make timing suboptimal. And I want to get to those. I would like to get to those now. So if you want to hit me with the questions, I pre-framed the first 25 minutes with how to potentially ask some questions, and then we can look at how I can maybe get you some answers. And thanks again for the difficult word, saliva. I don't know why it hit my brain, just leaked out of my brain. Okay. So what do we? It's there are a few people that are commenting that you've been having unsolicited ads blow out the presentation, and I apologize for that. All right. So I think it was Roger. I can't find it out. You were asking about the timing on third shift. See, this is really difficult. So if you are nocturnal instead of diurnal, if you have to perform all night long, you've got to take some special transition methods, and then you have to have some special techniques in order to address the fact that what you're in is a really lousy situation. There's no way around it, and I'm not judging you for it. Look, I got hit in the face for 20 years. That was my job. So I don't judge what you have to do in order to make a living. But if it's a lousy situation, how can we maximize the amount of manageable techniques we can use to help? One, as soon as you wake up, you need to hit some type of bright light. You need to stimulate the system to get it knocked over. Block out all light. Any light, even 2 milliseconds of light during your sleep will interrupt the serotonin production. So the secretion of serotonin can be interrupted just by any light. Two, you need to reproduce the light that you're going to have, and including if you want to transition into sleep right before you go to sleep after work, then you need to look at like a softer orange hue in your light bulbs in your bedroom, so that you can actually simulate the sunset as close as you can. That this is hard science. It's not any type of woo-woo pseudoscience. You need to reproduce the cycle of light, since your brain was organized to recognize it. So think of your workouts then being on the schedule of how the light appears. You want your bright light, short cardio, metabolic, high intensity intervals as soon as you wake up. And you want your strength, your slow grinding workouts for developing power to be at the end of that cycle where the light starts to sunset. If you hit those, you can use exercise-induced stress to reproduce the cycle of your biorhythm, of your circadian rhythm, and that will help nudge you, called a Zeitgeber, nudge you onto the cycle that you have in third shift work. If you have shift changing work from one week to the next, that really blows, and it's going to be difficult for you to continually develop routines to use those Zeitgebers to push it over into the new cycle, because it's basically as if you would fly 12 time zones in the course of one day and then keep switching that. It's an enormous amount of stress, so you have to look at your cortisol levels there. But that's the main thrust that I'm going to suggest. Yes, I know, Tanya, you have no control over its timing and you work around the clock, and that blows. But that being the case, then you can use short workouts, like you and I have talked about that in the past. You can use short workouts, even a mobility session, of simulating the type of activity that would be associated with that period. Okay, let me get back to this. Alex asks a question which is not directly related to this. Yes, go ahead and ask the question, Alex, and as soon as I'll get to it, I'll answer it. How about mixing outflow in the morning with TacFit Warrior and muscle workout in the evening? Absolutely, that's really the point. Bad 45, I produced a system. It was designed for the fact that I was flying 500,000 miles a year, and I had to figure out a way to use exercise-induced stress to make sure that I could combat chronic stress just from travel, as well as teaching 14 hours a day and demonstrating exercise all day long and eating in the wrong uh, timing for my circadian rhythm. I mean, all of those are stress to the system. So Bad 45 was a way to do that. Look at the calendars and you'll see how that's pulled off. But yes, outflow in the morning with TacFit Warrior, and then a strength session at night around 6, right before 5 or 6, between 4 and 6, right before dinner. All right. Sarah, do you still recommend 6 a.m. workouts even if it's dark at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m.? Okay, so I live in the Pacific Northwest, and we can vary. It could be 10 p.m. before it's fully dark in the summer, and then it could be dark around 4:30 p.m. in the winter months. So I understand, but you want to try and make it as seasonal as possible for the light cycle that you have, but you also have to be reasonable about it and use light to your advantage. So if you live in a dramatically changing seasonal area, or one that doesn't change, like the closer to the equator, then you have to set up the environment for you so that your hormones can optimize their timing. So yes, I still advise the 6 a.m. workout to keep an even keel, but you can nudge it 1 to 2 hours depending upon the flexibility that you have in your schedule, and play with it. It takes you 2 weeks to find out feedback from your hormone pulsivity. It takes you 2 weeks to know whether it's working for you or not. So after 2 weeks, if you've nudged it an hour and you don't see improvement in water retention or lack of water retention, in physical output, in sleep quality, in energy throughout the high performance mental demand part of your day from 10 to 2 p.m. Those are supposed to be your optimal awake hours from the natural release of stress hormones, 10 to 2. If you find that you're dropping down and lulling during those periods, then you want to shift it earlier again. Okay. This is the next question. I have near permanent stress in leg muscles which make workouts painful. What exercising helps? So there's an array of potential problems that could be going on that could be causing that. Consider doing an Epsom bath or having Epsom salts and soak your legs so that you can get transdermal or through the skin absorption of magnesium. Take a magnesium supplement. Sometimes ingested supplements don't have the same type of absorption rather than going directly into the tissues. Remember, your skin is your largest organ, so transdermal injection of a particular mineral is probably the most effective way. But if you can't, then take a magnesium supplement at night, like a ZMA, a zinc and magnesium supplement at night. Within 2 to 3 days, you should see that the problem with the legs could go away. If not, then we have to look at something else. It's not an exercise issue, it's a recovery issue. All right. Recommended drinking water first thing when you wake up for yes, 100%. As soon as you wake up, before you take any coffee or black tea or anything, 8 ounces of water. This is going to be important for your elimination. Remember, you are not only are you what you eat, but you are also what you don't eliminate. So you want to coax the elimination, and it's best around 6:30 is your optimal. Between 5:30 and 6:30 is your optimal bowel movement and elimination period. I'm sorry if it's a uncomfortable topic for some, but you want to coax that movement along so that you don't hit it in a time where you have higher stress, which means when you have elimination, when you have stress hormones, you're going to decrease your amount of elimination and increase your compacture and how much waste you hold in your body. So that water that you hit as soon as you wake up encourages it, and then just even the smell of coffee or just the touch of the taste of it will cause the elimination to come really fast and then it's ready to run. Okay, sorry I'm behind on questions. Ed, would you recommend full spectrum light bulbs during winter as opposed to normal light bulbs? Yes. Check in and do a little bit of Google research on the light you can receive and what you can purchase. Do not underestimate the power. Coming from Pennsylvania and moving into the Northwest, the northernmost part of the United States, Alaska not included, I wasn't anticipating the effect of the seasons, the long winters and the very long dark periods throughout the night and day, how that would impact my stress levels and my cortisol levels, and then impact my physical performance, my ability to rebuild muscle and keep bone density. It's pretty significant. So you need bright light. You really need to hit it. Okay. Jeru, if you do a HIIT type workout in the morning, how many minutes are optimal? Okay, this is really the neuroendocrine response takes about 14 to 18 minutes, and this is where we really need to step back and stop looking at fitness from a power output standpoint, how much you can perform. How much you can perform is irrelevant. Two, and stop looking at exercise as a bodybuilding outcome-based activity, where how much muscle can you build. It's not about that. It's how much you can activate your hormonal system and switching back and forth between sympathetic and parasympathetic. So to hit your hormones at the right time, you only need to get to your second wind where you have that dopamine hit. So once you start to feel good, now what does that mean? Okay, let's say you go for a run in the morning. You go outside, you go for a run, and the first mile or so, you have all of the circular respiratory distress. So it's your lungs are feeling like they're burning, you're struggling, your heart is racing against what you're doing, you have phantom joint pains, you have all of the bubbling thoughts of, I should be doing this, I should be going back, I forgot to do this, I didn't close the garage door. All of those false thoughts are because you've released these initial stress hormones, catecholamines. The glucocorticoids haven't hit on yet, the slow release, and the cortisol levels trying to come on heavy to give you more blood sugar, but you haven't had the dopamine hit. So you keep running despite all of these circular respiratory distressors. And then suddenly it gets easier and you forgot what you were objecting to, and you're looking around and you're enjoying the activity, and there's that period of temporary euphoria. So you get the endorphins, and then right with that, the mood change, the dopamine hit, and you feel the reward of the activity. You could stop right there. Anything after that is just bonus. But if you stopped right there and it's about 14 to 18 minutes, then you'll get all of the benefit you want for the day. You've hit the catabolic window, so you've got all of your fat synthesis going on. You're pulling that out of those adipocytes and converting them, but you're also lifting up your metabolism for the rest of the day. So that's all you need. Dylan, my question pertains to overall craze for the low-carb, high-fat diet. I don't understand the question. Your question pertains to the craze for low-carb, high-fat diet for athletic performance. I'm not a fan of low-carb. I am high complex carb, high protein, high good fats, high everything. High everything but simple carbs. Anything that's a fast fuel that burns very quickly, anything fast is causing your body to age faster. And it upregulates your cells to only want those fast-burning fuels. I want slow-burning fuels. I want to last a long time. I want to have that energy all day long. So anything that hits fast and stops is bad for you. But everything else, high amounts, high protein, high complex carbs, high fats, high good fats, high good fats. Fun Central says to consider a topical magnesium oil. You know, I don't. It's feasible. It's logical. But I haven't researched topical applications of magnesium oil and how they impact. I know Epsom salts are 100% effective, and I know that there is a pharmacologist from Canada who can't remember his name, who developed a transdermal method of a cream that's applied topically in order to get the vitamins and minerals and supplements into the areas needed. His wife had a circulatory respiratory disorder, and she couldn't take, because of the disorder, she couldn't ingest any of her supplementation and medicine. So he, as a pharmacologist, developed a transdermal transmission of her medicine. And it ended up being a revolutionary approach. I'll publish his name and his company as soon as I can go to my outsourced brain, my hard drive, and find out what the name was again. Nightly cortisol managers. What are your thoughts on these supplements? They're effective, and especially when they're prescribed by a doc, a medical doctor. I'm not too keen on taking them without knowing what the cortisol levels are, because there's so many factors that could be influencing sleep disruption and activation of serotonin and acetylcholine. So it depends. I mean, I know you've been with a doc on this, and I would definitely, since they're doing blood panels on you, I would definitely follow their recommendations. But we could even look more closely at the diurnal, the daytime activities that could be leading up to that, whether it's and get to the source of the issue rather than just addressing the symptom of the cortisol overpresence. Dylan, what am I? Oh, you were just curious on the thoughts on the low carb diet. No, not a tremendous fan of low carb. I'm 11 messages behind. Okay, stand by. I'm catching up. Ricky is ready, really fast and ready to run. 6:30 tomorrow morning. Daniel, for the deconditioned or mobility impaired, how do they do outflow? Okay, well, the reality is that they're going to have difficulty getting to the physical exertion for outflow, but they can increase the amount of water intake in order to decrease the osmoreceptors' impression that they need to retain water. So if you increase the amount of water presence, then vasopressin will stop secreting. There's no antagonist. There's no off switch to vasopressin. This is to the extent of my research or to the extent of the science that's currently available. So the only solution is a positive feedback of increasing water levels so that you can shut down vasopressin, as well as for the mobility impaired, use a progressive yoga approach that I've shared in bad45.com. My approach to yoga is that you need to get to the 20 seconds where you're deep, but you can't start there. You have to go around the world to get across the block. So you have to go step by step by step. And even if you don't get to the final step, you get to your final step for that particular day. And by hitting that progressive yoga approach, you activate serotonin and acetylcholamine levels through the deep exhale, where you have to exhale to avoid inhaling and screaming. You have to exhale through that hard yoga session, and that will start to switch off the sympathetic nervous system. So the catecholamines, the glucocorticoids, and cortisol stops secreting, and you decrease stress levels, which means that the outflow can begin because you no longer need to retain water. You don't need the water pressure. Remember that the water pressure is there because it assumes that the body is going to be cut or broken or damaged, so it needs blood pressure for the hemorrhage. So it's a pneumatic system. So if we can hit the other side of our nervous system, the recover and relax and digest part of our nervous system, the parasympathetic, then the outflow can begin. So for the mobility impaired and the deconditioned, hit them with the progressive yoga and increase the water intake like I recommended at the beginning of the show. Clayton asks, what's a good sit-up workout? Well, take a look at 6degreeflow.com because your core is not designed for forward flexion. It's designed to resist extension, which is one of the points of rotation. But there are 5 other points of rotation that it's designed to resist. So the core is designed for anti-rotation in 6 different movements. 6degreeflow.com is what you should check out. Daniel Markert, I didn't understand. Oh, you were answering somebody else. Mehmet, is there an Occam's razor solution to fat loss? I don't feel stressed, but you still can't shift it. Well, it's too multifactorial. There's no way for me to know what the particular problem could be. It could be the absence of positive stress, of exercise-induced stress. I don't know. I would have to look at your particular behavior and how that matches up with your biorhythm through the day. When you eat, when you exercise, what you do for a living, and how it's all timed. It's too big of a question. No, there isn't a simple solution. Chris, what kind of workout would you say a decent intensity BJJ roll is? I usually get in at least 4 to 5. What do you mean by a decent intensity roll? You know what I mean? So you could go against a white or a blue who's going 85 to 100% because they think everything's a freaking competition, or you could be going with a brown, a good purple's brown or black who understands that rolling is like 35 to 45%, and the goal isn't to try and win, but to try and find the limitations in your game and to look for the errors. So when you go with the good purples, browns, and blacks, you're talking about an actual activation of the parasympathetic nervous system. You're getting serotonin and acetylcholine from doing good jiu-jitsu, from doing highly competitive white and blue belt mentality jiu-jitsu. It's all sympathetic nervous system, catecholamines, glucocorticoids, and cortisol. It's all stress. And the goal of good jiu-jitsu, in my opinion, is hormonal convergence. Your hormonal conversion. You're working on shifting your game from a sympathetic alarm to a parasympathetic flow. And so that's if you're hitting it with the white and blue belt mentality of rolling, those are your partners, then you're looking at up to even a high intensity session, depending upon how spasmodic they are, but mostly moderate. Once you start shifting over to good purple, brown, and black belt, you're looking at low intensity. It's just like black belt, a good high level black belts that I've gone with. For them, it's like a mobility session. They're just having a good time. They might not even sweat. They'll just have a good nap, or give you a good nap. Alex, I have a hard time to complete the full 28-day wave of primal stress and then continue it with it the next several more days. Do you recommend lesser intensity in the workout or more compensation days? That's a good question, and I would I would rather you add more compensation days, swap out more compensation days, than decrease the intensity of the workout, because decreasing the intensity of the workout is your body wanting you to do more compensation, but you're trying to still get a fitness effect from it. So swap out and do more compensation days, and you'll rebalance the serotonin levels. And you'll find that you can switch on more in the morning because you're fully recovered and repaired by the time you wake up. And then you'll truly have a moderate and a high intensity day. But if you have life stressors that are impacting your exercise intensity, then things start to level off and you have this low to moderate intensity session every day, and they're all bland and insufficient to turn off the sympathetic alarm. You don't squeeze and release. High intensity and then no intensity. You just have this constant, it's just chronic stress. So add more compensation days, come back on the ratchet, torque back, and then go forward, and you'll find you have more torque. Okay. How about Chinese tea, hot tea during lunch? Conventional wisdom is that it is good during meals. I'm not an advocate of increasing fluids during your meals. I would avoid it. I mean, you make your decision. I'm not a fan. Ain is considering purchasing the Bad 45 package. Is it compatible with the iPad? Yes, it's compatible with the iPad. James does Intaflow and FlowFit in the morning and TacFit around 6 p.m. Should I switch? No, that's good. That's good timing. I would alternate it every 3 to 4 days, just to toggle the patterning and see how that impacts you. But if you found your groove, then stick with it. How does this system fit within the 4 to 7 wave of TacFit? Should I follow 4 to 7 or work out twice a day? Just follow the recommendations. If you've been doing TacFit, follow the recommendations in Bad 45. Follow that calendar for its entire cycle, and then you'll see how that impacts you. Chris, Chris is the brown belts and black belts are usually whom I'm doing those. Then you're looking at a low intensity session. So you want to think of the fact that you're going to start needing to induce more high intensity, because what happens is, please forgive me, this is not a judgment. Look at the people that do high level jiu-jitsu that don't do any supplementary conditioning. Eventually they just start to develop a belly and they start to gain weight, because for them jiu-jitsu is no more inherently athletic. They've even gotten it down to a no intensity mobility session, even against whites and blues. So you need to induce some type of exercise stress to supplement the fact that you no longer have that spasmodic white blue belt stress when you're rolling. And that's where it's really going to be important. At the early levels with white and blue and early purple, then you're looking at, okay, I need to do more compensation and more mobility because my jiu-jitsu is highly athletic. Okay. Sarah, any thoughts on training with rock climbing? Rock climbing is a stealth workout. I do bouldering with my son, and the amount of exercise that you get from it is deceptive. So you want to give yourself 24 to 48 hours after the climbing session to test the impact that it's had on your body. And it depends on, and I really highly encourage you to look up resources on technique, because when you're first starting out, you can really forearm it and grip it and not use your full body like you should. Once I was shown technique, then I was realizing how much of my body I could recruit in my climbing, and the stationary holding, as opposed to the over-dominance with grip and forearm that one could start with. Tips for outrigger canoe marathon racing. I found that TacFit can help me recover from stiffness. Cat. Okay, so one of the most important neglected aspects of paddling is the downward crunch. So we can, from fixation of the blade and outward hold, you have downward pressure, and one of the benefits of, say, a 6-degree flow is the rotation. So you have a yaw, a twist at the waist, you have forward flexion, which is your pitch, and those two core actions in combination are very beneficial for performance in your paddling. So take a look at 6-degree flow and those two types of rotation. You'll find quite a bit of options, as well as look at the in 6-degree matrix. There are some club bell exercises. In particular, I'm thinking the diagonal crunch with the club bell is really critical for the setting the blade into the water using the core rather than the delts. The key, so the key is from Rashad. The key is to get serotonin to rebuild and exercise for getting endorphins and dopamine. Yeah, that's my oversimplified way of looking at the hormonal switch. The conversion, you want to get this tourniquet, squeeze onto the intensity of exercise so that you get control of your catecholamines, glucocorticoids, and cortisol. And then as soon as you turn it on, rather than the slowed, constant chronic stress, having them somewhat on throughout the day, you open the sluice gates and then you shut them off as soon as you feel the mood change, the second wind, the gear shift, and the dopamine hits and the endorphin hits. When you do that, then you have a couple days that you have entrance to your yoga, and that's when your deep, heavy yoga, where you can work on your exhales under stress of relieving the tonus that's in your body, and that gives you the serotonin release and the acetylcholine, which gives you the sleep capacity and the recovery and repair at night, so you wake up feeling freaking awesome. And that's really where we reclaim control of this oscillation between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. With the 4-day wave, should moderate intensity days be the 6 p.m. and the high intensity days be the 6 a.m.? So you're looking that's actually, you're asking Brandon about a 2-day wave. Follow the BAD 45 as prescribed without tinkering with it. Knowing how you're training, do start with the strength calendar and go all through it every single day, and don't screw with it until you get to the end. And then you'll see that your intensity is pairing up with, syncing up with the biorhythm of your hormones through the programming. Kevin, do you recommend a compensation cooldown directly after a high stress physical job? Yes and no. So Kevin, what I do suggest is that you do a 20-minute high intensity or moderate intensity exercise session, and then do within 24 to 48 hours of that, do your compensation program, 14 to 18 minutes, so that you can switch that on. So again, I call this technique the hormonal tourniquet. If you have a high stress occupation or a high stress life, then you need to squeeze it on, and then you need to release it. So within 2 to 4 days, you'll have access to the other side of your nervous system, parasympathetic. Four by 7 again. I don't want to buy another program, but want to take advantage of the hormones. Brian, P.A. Brian, I don't understand the question. If you could repeat it. Dale, how would you recommend modifying your TacFit and primal stress workouts for those of us over 65? Uh, 65 is nothing that you need to modify it. And if you don't have any type of heart conditions and you don't have any surgical alterations to your body, then the goal is to have a sufficient amount of intensity to squeeze onto your release of hormones to activate your testosterone and growth hormone release. Because they say that we have a decline 1% every year after 55. And some is going as early as 35. But the goal is to time our workouts and time our food, our meals, so that when we have our natural testosterone release and when we have our meals, we release more, we increase our androgen receptors so that we can pick up the testosterone and growth hormone in our bodies, growth hormone at night, and testosterone in the morning. Those androgen receptors can grab a hold and help us regrow muscle and bone. So it's designed that way, but you have to time the meals and look at your workout timing. How do you do the 4x7 wave, but also follow the 6 a.m. fat burning, 6 p.m. muscle building? Well, you look at your workouts as starting to do them consistently on one particular period of your day. So if you're doing a 6 a.m. workout, do it every day. Hit that metabolic furnace. And when you complete a cycle, then do a cycle of a 6 p.m. workout. And when you get up in the morning, do your mobility routine. The goal is to turn on your system when you wake up and shut down your system before you go to sleep. So that's really as simplified as we can make this. You can alternate your days so that you can do it. If you have a mobility and compensation day, you can do the mobility at 6 a.m. and the compensation the next day at 6 p.m. You can do the moderate intensity in the morning and the high intensity at night, or switch those. And the high intensity in the morning will be more speed and more volume. High intensity at night will end up being heavier weight and more complex movement. So the timing is really up to you. You have to find how this pairs up to your biorhythm. All right, so we're a little bit over time, and I apologize for that. I know I wanted to make sure that I got through all of the questions. Thank you for the great questions, the very well thought out questions, and I want you to check out bad45.com while the sale is still going on. We have 2 more days before this ends, and I want to make sure that you take advantage of all of the incredible launch bonuses that I put into this, and the free books that I included in this launch. Retail is going to start next week, but all of those launch bonuses will be gone, as well as it'll be up to retail price once I get to Australia and the office resets it back to normal. So thank you for everyone that's tuned in. Thank you for everyone that participated in this hugely successful promotional launch. I'm really honored that you trust me, and I thank you for letting me share with you the research that has brought me so much benefit at being 45, and I hope you share it with your friends and family. So thank you again, and I'll see you on Facebook. Keep those results and updates coming. Thank you, everybody.